I just wanted to surprise my husband. He'd been working 16-hour days, nonstop, for months. I thought maybe I can pick out something special for him. So I walked into the showroom quiet, small town clothes, nothing flashy. My wedding ring, I'd left it at home on the sink after washing dishes. The moment I stepped in, they looked up from their desks and looked away. Not a smile, not a "can I help you?" Just a security guard trailing me like I was about to shoplift a steering wheel. I still tried. I approached one of the salesmen, young, sharp suit, hair like a TV anchor. "I'm interested in a gift, a car." I said. He laughed. "Mom, this isn't a used lot. These are real vehicles. Maybe check Craigslist." Then he motioned to someone behind the desk, gave a little wave, and they actually opened the front door for me. "Mom, let's not waste anyone's time. We've got serious clients to help." I froze. Was it my jeans? Mid-ponytail, I looked down at my hands cracked from cooking, folding laundry, doing the behind-the-scenes work of a good life. I walked out without a word. What they didn't know, my name wasn't on the headlines, but I built the empire they worship. And tomorrow, they'd find out exactly who I was. They saw a plain woman in jeans. They didn't see the woman who once ran product logistics for one of the fastest growing e-commerce startups in the U.S. They didn't see the woman who left it all behind by choice to build something far bigger, a life. I'm Samantha, not Mrs. Carmichael, like the headlines call me now. Just Samantha, born and raised in Akron, Ohio. I grew up in a house with 3 siblings, a mother who could stretch a dollar like magic, and a father who always said, "You don't need to be loud to be powerful." I worked my way through community college, then transferred to a state school on scholarship. That's where I met Daniel. He wasn't the polished billionaire people know today. He was shy, brilliant, obsessive about code, and utterly clueless when it came to fashion or people. But I saw his fire. We were broke together, ate ramen, shared one laptop, took turns working night shifts. I believed in him when no one else did. And when his company finally took off, I didn't ask for a thing. I offered to build his back-end systems, hire his team, organize his operations. For 3 years, I was the hidden force behind the curtain. Then, when we had our first baby, I told him, "I want to try something harder. I want to raise a family." He didn't hesitate. He supported me completely. So while he scaled our now billion-dollar company, I scaled a different kind of empire, our home. I never cared about showing off. I didn't post photos, didn't shop luxury labels. My joy was in the little things, packing lunches, picking our kids up from school, volunteering at the shelter. But there was something I couldn't ignore, how people changed the moment they thought I had nothing to offer. The barista who ignored me until Daniel showed up, The boutique manager who followed me through the store until I showed a platinum card. And that dealership, that was the final straw. They didn't know I'd helped build a system that now powers half their back-end inventory. They didn't know I still sit on the board that oversees their parent company's funding. They just saw a woman in Target shoes and decided I didn't belong. I didn't walk out of that showroom angry. I walked out calculating, because power, real power, isn't about what people see on you. It's about what they never saw coming. And the next morning, I woke up still thinking about that moment. The way they opened the door, like I was some lost delivery driver in the wrong place. The way that salesmen smirked as if just being in the showroom was a joke I didn't get. It wasn't just the insult. It was how easy it was for them. How fast they decided I wasn't worthy. Daniel was still asleep when I got up. I didn't tell him what had happened. Not yet. He would have gone full scorched earth. Probably bought the dealership just to fire someone. But this needed a different kind of response. I dropped the kids at school, then pulled into a coffee shop near the dealership. I parked just out of view, but close enough to watch the morning rush through the tinted window of my SUV. At 9:03 a.m., the glass doors opened. Some smug salesman, same receptionist. A Bentley pulled up, and they practically ran outside to open the door. Smiles, shiny brochures, fresh espresso. I watched as they rolled out the red carpet for a guy who barely said thank you. I wasn't mad about the treatment anymore. I was fascinated. How many other women, how many real potential customers had they dismissed the same way? That night, after dinner, Daniel poured himself a drink and sat down beside me on the couch. I had a weird call today. He said, one of the dealership groups we fund, they asked if I knew someone named Samantha Davis. Grassed. I froze. That's my maiden name. I said carefully, why? He raised an eyebrow. Apparently someone matching that name caused a disruption yesterday. They were wondering if it's connected to me. I burst out laughing. Disruption? You mean asking to buy a car? He looked at me for a long moment. Then he leaned back and smiled. Oh, so that's the dealership. I nodded slowly. I didn't tell them who I was. They didn't ask. They assumed I couldn't afford a car and escorted me out. He was quiet for a minute. Then he reached for his phone. No, I said, touching his hand. Let me handle it. He studied my face. That's one of the best things about Daniel. He knows when to step back and let me lead. All right, he said, but whatever you're planning, I'm in. And that's when I made the decision not to shame them, but to teach them and everyone watching that judging people by appearances is the fastest way to lose everything. I could have gone in guns blazing, sent an email to their board, leaked the footage from the security cameras. I knew they kept, but something in me said, wait, watch, let them reveal even more. Because people like that, they don't stop at one insult. They're consistent, predictable. And when they think you're nobody, they show their true selves. So I went back. Not inside, not yet. I spent a week quietly observing Monday through Friday. I parked across the street with a coffee in hand and a notebook in my lap. No one noticed me, a mom in a soccer van, scrolling on her phone, invisible, but I saw everything. Tuesday, a young couple came in, clearly nervous, holding hands like this was their first major purchase together. The receptionist didn't even look up. The salesman, same one who kicked me out, waved them off when they asked about financing options. You need at least 30% down to even sit in one of these. He barked. They left 5 minutes later, red-faced and ashamed. Wednesday, an older black man walked in, sharply dressed, carrying a leather folder. I watched from across the lot as the staff literally whispered and laughed behind his back. He stayed for 10 minutes, talked to a manager, and walked out shaking his head. It looked hurt, really hurt. Thursday, a young woman pulled up in a beat-up Corolla and stepped out in scrubs, probably on break from a long hospital shift. She made it 5 feet inside before someone physically blocked her with a clipboard. No test drives today. They said, come back when you're ready to actually buy. They were doing this daily, dismissing people who didn't fit their picture of wealth, assuming credit by clothing, intelligence by accent, worth by wallet. Every time I watched them reject someone else, I felt a little stronger. Not because of revenge, but because I knew something they didn't. Their days were numbered. I took notes, faces, names, comments, even took photos when I could, discreetly. And on Friday afternoon, I finally walked back in, different outfit this time, sharp black blazer, heels, red lipstick, still no ring, still no entourage, just me. They didn't recognize me, or maybe they did but couldn't place where from the same salesman approached. Welcome to Ridge Valley Motors. He said, suddenly, all sugar and charm. What brings you in today? I smiled. Oh, just here to see how you treat your real customers. He blinked, thrown off. Excuse me, I was here last week. I said, remember the jeans, the ponytail, the woman you personally escorted out the door. His face drained, mouth opened, closed again. I wasn't sure. I mean, we see a lot of people. Exactly. I said, you see a lot of people and you treat most of them like garbage unless they roll up in a Bentley. I didn't yell, didn't need to. My calm voice cut sharper than any scream. I turned on my heel and walked out, but not before glancing at the security camera in the corner and giving it a small nod, because by Monday, that footage would matter, and when the real storm came, there'd be nowhere for them to hide. They thought I was just a nobody in denim, just another non-buyer they could brush off. But here's what they didn't know. The Ridge Valley dealership, it's part of a larger chain, a national automotive group with luxury brands under its belt. And that group, they don't run on oil and tires. They run on software, a back-end inventory and logistics system I helped build from scratch. 10 years ago, Daniel and I co-founded a platform designed to modernize auto dealership supply chains inventory tracking, dynamic pricing, order fulfillment, and predictive maintenance algorithms all bundled into one seamless system. At the time, the big players laughed us off. Too new, too small, too unknown, until one chain gave us a shot. We increased their revenue by 22% in 6 months. Word got out. And now, over 73 dealerships, including Ridge Valley, rely on a system that I architected even after I stepped away. I kept my shares, I kept my board seat, I kept my influence. So while they kicked me out the front door, I was sitting at the top floor, quietly, patiently, remembering every smirk and insult. And I wasn't alone. I had allies. Tina, one of my closest friends from our board, used to be dismissed the same way before she became CFO of a Fortune 500. Luis, our compliance director, he's watched dealership after dealership crumble from arrogance. So I made a few calls, quiet, strategic. First, to corporate compliance. I sent them timestamps, images, and notes from the week I spent observing. I didn't accuse, I documented. Let the footage speak for itself. Let the pattern of behavior show that this wasn't one bad day. It was a culture. Then I called PR, not the dealership's PR, ours. The group's holding company had a communications team, and I suggested a new internal campaign, character over credit scores, a public-facing training initiative to spotlight fair treatment and customer respect. They loved it, especially when I told them how I planned to launch it. Last, I called Daniel. Babe, I said, I need the ghost. He laughed. The Rolls. Yes. Can you have it dropped at the dealership Monday at noon? Done. He said, want me to come too? I smiled. No, I want them to deal with me. That weekend, I prepared not a costume, not a performance, just me, walking back into the same showroom, this time not to buy a car, but to hold a mirror up to the entire place. And behind me, as I stepped from the ghost in full view of their surveillance and staff, I knew the woman they dismissed as invisible was about to become unforgettable. I didn't want revenge. I wanted accountability. I didn't want them to cry or beg. I wanted them to understand exactly what they'd done and what it cost them. So while the PR team polished up our campaign, I got to work making sure this wasn't just a dramatic entrance. This had to be airtight, documented, professional, undeniable. First, I compiled a report. Customer Experience Assessment, Ridge Valley Dealership. Sounded neutral, harmless, but inside it held photos from each day I'd observed their behavior, time-stamped notes of discriminatory incidents, facial recognition matches from the security footage corporate had full access, audio logs from mic'd customers we sent in later to verify the treatment. Yes, we actually sent in actors, everyday people of different races, income level, and genders to walk into that showroom with hidden mics and basic questions. Every single one of them got stonewalled, rushed, dismissed, unless they dropped the phrase, "I'm actually here to spend 6 figures." Then the entire tone changed. Magically, they found time. I included it all. No emotions, no accusations, just facts. Next, I worked with our diversity and ethics officers to frame the entire thing as a compliance breach. We weren't punishing, we were training. We weren't attacking, we were realigning values. And I made sure the board would be there. Not virtually, in person, Monday morning. I booked a private room inside the dealership itself, a small executive office tucked behind their glass showroom. I had their own staff set up a presentation screen, water pitchers, a sign-in sheet. And at the top of that sheet, I listed the attendees. Me, Tina, our board liaison, corporate compliance director, Ridge Valley Group CEO, dealership general manager, senior sales staff. And I made sure of one thing above all. The salesman who kicked me out, he was scheduled on shift. I didn't request it. I didn't manipulate it. He was just that consistent. Always there on Mondays. Always on the floor. Always the face of the problem. I sent one final email that morning. Dear Ridge Valley staff, you are invited to a surprise leadership visit and presentation from one of our executive board members. Please dress accordingly. We will be discussing an upcoming national campaign and highlighting customer experience expectations moving forward. Regards, Samantha Carmichael. They wouldn't know it was me until I walked in. They wouldn't see it coming because they never bothered to see me at all. As I zipped up my black suit and stepped into the back seat of the Rolls-Royce, I felt not angry, not even nervous, just ready, because I wasn't walking in for me. I was walking in for every person they'd humiliated, every woman they called sweetheart, every immigrant they dismissed, every worker they ignored. And they had no idea the woman walking through their doors that day wasn't just there to observe. She was there to restructure the way they did business from the inside out. And the Rolls pulled up at exactly 11:59 a.m. I could see them through the glass speaking, squinting, wondering which Hollywood client had arrived. They straightened their collars. One ran a hand through his hair. And the salesman, the same one who kicked me out, adjusted his tie and started walking toward the door like a game show host meeting a contestant. He opened it before the driver could. And when I stepped out, he froze. "Can I help, ma'am?" "Welcome," he stammered, already off balance. I gave him a polite nod. "Yes, I believe I have a 12 o'clock with your general manager. Board presentation." His face drained of color. "Board?" "Yes," I said, walking past him. "And I hope you're attending too. Your name's on the sign-in sheet." I didn't look back, but I could feel the panic trail behind me like a cloud of bad perfume inside the meeting room. They were all waiting. Tina, Luis, the dealership GM, 3 senior sales staff, including the one who judged me based on my jeans, and the regional VP of the automotive group, freshly flown in. When he found out who was calling the meeting, I walked to the front of the room, took a breath, and let the silence settle. Good afternoon. I began. My name is Samantha Carmichael. I serve as a board advisor for Ridge Valley's parent company. For those of you wondering why we're here today, I clicked the remote. The first slide came up. Customer experience, bias in luxury environments. There were murmurs. I continued. This past week, I visited this location under my maiden name. I was not greeted. I was not offered help. I was escorted to the door. That's fine. I don't need apologies. I need accountability. Slide 2, screenshots. Timestamps. Photos of the scrubs-clad nurse, the older man in the suit, the young couple who left humiliated. Then came the recordings. I played 2 short clips. The voices in the room shifted. Eyes dropped, mouths tightened. You could hear the discomfort. One of the salesmen spoke up. This can't be policy. We never meant to. I stopped him gently. I know it's not official policy, but it's practice. And if practice goes unchecked, it becomes culture. The regional VP cleared his throat, clearly flustered. We take this very seriously. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. I'm not done. I clicked to the next slide. Character over credit scores. A new standard. I introduced the campaign, told them we'd be rolling out mandatory training across all 70-plus dealerships, told them performance reviews would now include customer respect, metrics tracked, measured, and reported. And then I made it personal to the man who showed me the door last week. I looked directly at the salesman. He stared down at the table. You were right. I didn't belong in your dealership because your dealership doesn't yet deserve customers like me or the ones you sent away. Silence, powerful, surgical. I'm not here to humiliate you. I said, scanning the room, I'm here to remind you that wealth doesn't always walk in wearing designer shoes. Sometimes it walks in wearing nursing scrubs or levies or love. I clicked the last slide. It simply read, this is your second chance. Use it well. Then I closed the laptop and walked out. The Rolls was still waiting, but I didn't need it anymore. They'd already seen everything they needed to. Then, the fallout began within 48 hours. I didn't have to lift another finger. The machine was already in motion corporate compliance. HR, legal, all reviewing the footage and testimony from the meeting. But the most damning evidence wasn't what I'd brought. It was how silent the staff had been in that room. Not one voice spoke up to defend the behavior because they knew it was true and they knew it had gone on for too long. Wednesday, the regional VP released a statement to the entire dealership network. It began, we are committed to a culture where every customer is treated with dignity, effective immediately. It listed new protocols. Every showroom must record and report customer interaction metrics weekly. Secret shoppers from diverse backgrounds would be visiting every month. And any staff member found exhibiting discriminatory behavior would be terminated. But the real fire landed Friday morning That same smug salesman, the one who walked me out like I didn't matter, was fired, not transferred, terminated. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. But I did sit with a quiet coffee on my back porch and let out the breath I didn't realize I'd been holding for days. He wasn't the only one. 2 other employees, own sales manager and the receptionist who turned her back on the nurse in scrubs, were released from contract. That's corporate speak for don't come back. The general manager was demoted. He didn't get fired, but he was moved to a training center, ironically, where he would now be required to lead ethics workshops under supervision. Let that sink in. The man who ignored months of mistreatment would now be forced to teach what he never practiced. And then came the press. The Character Over Credit Scores campaign was officially launched with a story in a mid-sized business publication. The article didn't name the dealership directly, but insiders knew, and customers, they noticed, because suddenly, Ridge Valley's showroom didn't feel so smug. The same receptionist now greeted guests with a smile. The new sales team carefully selected offered coffee to everyone, even those who walked in off the bus line. We started receiving messages. One woman wrote, "I walked into Ridge Valley expecting to be treated like garbage. Instead, someone shook my hand and asked about my day. I don't know what changed, but thank you." Another man sent, "I've been to 5 dealerships in my life. This was the first one where no one followed me around like I was stealing. I left with tears in my eye sand. A new car. That was the win. Not the firings, not the shakeups. The change, the shift in how people were being seen." Daniel came home late one evening and found me reading through feedback emails. He sat down beside me, kissed my cheek, and said, "You always were better at fixing systems than I was." I smiled. "I don't need to run companies anymore." I said, "But I'll be damned if I let them rot from the inside." Because revenge isn't always rage. Sometimes it's remodeling the room you were kicked out of and inviting everyone else in. And I didn't go back to that dealership again, not because I held a grudge, because I didn't need to. I'd already changed it. But word got around fast. I started getting emails from other women in our network, fellow board members, old colleagues, even people I hadn't heard from in years. "Samantha, you reminded me why I left. You gave me the push I needed to speak up. I watched that meeting clip 3 times. I wish I'd had your calm." Even the VP, the one who'd shuffled his feet and looked uncomfortable during the presentation, he reached out, "Would you consider leading a quarterly review initiative for all our flagship locations?" I told him I'd think about it. But what I really wanted was something deeper. Not a title, not more meetings, impact. So I pitched something else, not for the dealerships, for the customers. A new program, Drive Forward, an initiative where customers from underserved backgrounds, first-time buyers, and low-income applicants would receive personalized assistance from specially trained reps, credit building, education at no cost. And through a fund, Daniel and I quietly set up low-interest starter car loans with no strings attached. The board approved it unanimously, and I didn't even put my name on it, because it wasn't about me anymore. It was about the next woman who walks in wearing scrubs, the next dad in overalls, the next teenager who looks too young to be serious. Meanwhile, at home, I was reclaiming something else, my own space. I started writing again, essays, articles, quiet reflections on power, perception, and how kindness doesn't mean weakness. A few got picked up by medium-sized outlets. One of them went viral. It was titled, "What They Didn't See When They Looked at Me." Even Daniel, who rarely comments on anything I write, left a note on that one. Still the sharpest mind I know. Proud of you. Always. I also started mentoring again, quietly, in small circles. Young women in tech, women who'd stepped away from careers to raise families, women who were told their intelligence had an expiration date. I reminded them, you don't have to choose between soft and strong. You can be both. You can leave the spotlight and still own the stage. As for Ridge Valley, well, 6 months later, I got a package. Inside, a handwritten card from their new general manager, a woman named Aria, someone I'd helped place during a hiring referral years ago. The note read, "We still remember that Monday like it happened yesterday. But more importantly, we remember the message. We've sold more cars to first-time buyers in the last quarter than we did all of last year. Your voice changed this place. Thank you." Underneath the card was a keychain, sleek, silver. It read, "Character drives everything." I held it in my hand for a long moment, not because I needed the praise, but because I finally saw it. The ripple, one quiet act of courage, one confrontation, handled with purpose, one voice refusing to disappear. And suddenly, things weren't just better for me. They were better for everyone. Sometimes people ask me if I ever think about that day, the first time I walked into the dealership. The humiliation, the way they looked at me like I didn't belong. And the truth is, I do think about it, not with anger, but with clarity, because that moment didn't break me. It reminded me that our world still sees power in labels, logos, and loud voices. But real power is quiet. It's rooted. It doesn't need a spotlight to shine. I used to think I had to step aside from the business world to be a mother, to be a wife, to be just a woman in jeans. But now I know I was never stepping aside. I was just learning where my strength belonged. It belonged in the classroom, picking my child up with a scraped knee and a smile. It belonged in the quiet, late-night talks with my husband about values, not profits. And it belonged in that dealership, in the silence that followed truth. I don't need every room to recognize me. I don't need every name to know mine. But I will always walk in with the full weight of who I am. Because when people try to shrink you, that's your cue to stand taller. So if you've ever been dismissed, underestimated, or told you don't look the part, let me tell you something. You don't need to play their game, just build a better one. Then show up and own it, because the most dangerous person in any room is the one they never saw coming.